Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Andrew Armstrong. This is my friend Jeremy Grant. And welcome to this week's edition of God Stories. And just in case you've never checked this out, God Stories is simply our story that we've had with God. And so Jeremy, can you let us know some things that God's been doing in your life and a story you and him have together?
Yeah, I've been walking with God for a while, but I guess for the last 10 years, a pretty consistent theme that the Lord has been working on me with is servanthood. And I guess it was last year, I have been living with a bunch of guys, and a bunch of guys' housework doesn't always get done all the time, and that's kind of frustrating to me at times, especially given certain situations. And so
Yes,
one time, I was really frustrated and doing some housework, and I was kind of getting a little grumpy about it. And then immediately after that, went and spent some time with the Lord, and he just started speaking to me. And then he directed me to open towards the end of one of the Gospels, where Jesus has come back from the dead and he's cooking the disciples breakfast.
Oh wow!
And he's he's showing me this picture. I'm seeing it as I'm reading it, and he shows me this picture where the disciples come up off the shore and Jesus is cooking them breakfast, and they just go through the story, and it kind of just hits me. The dead and resurrected Jesus is cooking breakfast for the disciples, and not one of them offers to take over. He's just cooking them breakfast. And what I realized is this: it was so normal for Jesus to be serving the disciples that they didn't even think twice when the resurrected Jesus is sitting in front of them cooking them breakfast. And it was kind of a slap in the face almost, because I realized, if I want to become more like Jesus, I have to get real comfortable with this idea of being a servant, because right now I'm a little grumpy, and Jesus wasn't about it. So,
So tell me, Jeremy, since you've been going through that process, have you begun to see what kind of stuff's been happening to you personally as you're doing this? It's been difficult, it's been hard. What's
it's difficult at times, but one of the things I have started realizing is a lot of it is me growing out of the mindset of a child, in honesty. It's getting out of this mindset of, my parents are around to do stuff for me. And, they haven't been for a while, but at the same time, when you live with a bunch of other people, you kind of think, someone else will do it. And growing out of that mindset has been challenging, but at the same time, it's been really rewarding, because you kind of begin to get this feeling of, when you get a task done, you have a feeling of success.
Wow. That's really interesting you say that, kind of growing up out of just being a child, because, it's natural for us, when we're young, where it's natural for us to be honest, honestly, we're kind of selfish. I am sometimes. But, when I look at love, in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, which is the love chapters, many of us have been reading every day for the past month or so. And when you read it, it talks about how love's patient, it's kind, it's all this stuff. And it talks about even how you could have the kind of faith that can move mountains, but having not love, you're nothing. You can have all prophetic revelation, and without love, you're nothing. But what's so crazy about that, at the end of it, it talks about his phrase. He goes, when I was a child, I thought like a child. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. But when I became a man, I put child's words behind me. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? But I think what God's saying there, Jeremy, is it's not about, is that in love, we'll quit being childish, and we'll begin to be patient towards one another and kind towards one another. And in fact, that's when we start looking the most like them. Because it says, it's like a man looking at, when he first looks in the mirror. It's about like a man looking in the mirror. And the more you see him, the more you look like him, and you'll see him face to face.
Yep.
Isn't it's kind of powerful to me.
It's really powerful.
And so, with that being said, for this week, we just really want to encourage you, as we've been talking about different things, spending time with Jesus and forgiving, releasing. But one of these major components of being like the Lord is, as you've been looking at 1 Corinthians 13, if you haven't, just start reading it, and you look at all these attributes of who God is, and how He's like that to us at all times. What if we decided this week even, we would begin to sow what He's been sowing to us this whole time? What if we took a chapter out of His book, what do you know, the Bible, And we actually serve one another. And I don't know, when Jesus washed their feet, he says, I'm doing this to show you how to do it.
Yeah.
So one of the components of having a story with the Lord, of having intimacy, is beginning to do it like he does it.
Yeah.
And honestly, at first, you're going to imitate it and you won't do it right the first time, will you, Jeremy?
Nope.
But as I've noticed in your life, you've been growing in this, and God's been doing this in your life for a while. It's a process.
Yeah.
So how about this? How about we embrace the process of love this week and begin to serve one another? So here's the challenge. I encourage you to find somebody, some group of people, some people you're around, to find a way that you could serve them out of this place of releasing patience, releasing kindness to them, not being self-seeking, but in fact always and rejoicing what God's doing in their life.
It's good.
All right, thank you guys. Until next time, love you.